Hi. Hello. My hair is a big mess right now. It's been a while since I sat down in front of a camera and recorded myself. I think it's been about 2 weeks because I did record the previous video pretty much in advance. So welcome back to the Nook. I'm really happy to be back in front of the camera and talking. And by now, I would have usually uploaded a monthly wrap up sort of video, so wrapping up the books that I read in July. But honestly, I'll be honest, really honest, like I didn't read a lot. I think I only read like 2 books in July. And that is very understandable because I was I was just not in the mental space to be reading books. And because of that, I won't be doing a monthly wrap up. I will instead be putting whatever I read in July together with hopefully an August wrap up. But if August doesn't work out, then I will put it in a sort of quarterly review at the end of September or something like that, because I predict that I really won't have time to read a lot of books in these few months because as I've mentioned before in my channel, I am actually doing another part-time arrangement thing, which actually is sort of teaching. So I am teaching, which is kind of funny because someone did comment in a previous video saying that maybe I should consider teaching. And yes, I am actually teaching, but we'll see after the part-time arrangement how I feel about that. I don't really have thoughts about it now. This video is not going to be very bookish related, but it's going to be related to a lot of the themes that I cover on this channel. Today's video is going to be talking about the fact, I don't know how to introduce it, but it's about the idea of ambition. And this sort of came into my mind with also the whole I don't want to really work, I don't dream of labor trend. And it's about people who no longer aspire to a career. I think it's a very similar sentiment of I just simply don't have the ambition anymore. And I just want to dig deeper into what this sentiment really means for me. And this also, I feel, is very much aligned to the general sort of trend that we see in the labor market, where people don't seem to be very willing to work anymore. There's so many videos about this, and a lot of people have different takes on this. I do think that the sentiments towards work can be very different according to what kind of work you're doing. So I don't think it's just a matter of labor shortage. I do think it's just a general lack of regard for workers' rights and workers' entitlements to things. So maybe for more of the service work or more of wage work, that would be things like reasonable hours, reasonable wages. And for people who work more corporate jobs, that could be things like kind of work-life balance, workers' entitlements, so things like paid leave, but like parental leave, medical insurance, and things like that, which I'm not too familiar with. But I do think there's a general sentiment around that. But in this video, I wanted to start off by talking about my personal experiences with ambition. So I'm not sure whether you know about this podcast by, I think, Tiffany Ferguson. It's called the Previously Gifted podcast, and I think she did mention in a video before why she named that podcast Previously Gifted. It was mostly because she felt like she was kind of given this idea or this notion that she was meant to accomplish big things in her life, that she was meant to do very great and successful things because maybe of her upbringing, her education, I don't know, like a background, things like that. And I did mention this in the I Do Not Dream of Labor video that I did, where I mentioned that I did go through sort of a gifted education program here in Singapore, and I was very much fed that dream that, I am talented, I am smart, I'm gifted, I have a lot of things to offer to the world, and I have to be exceptional. And this is something that a lot of adults will tell you. I don't know whether this is something that is generational. I don't know whether people have told this to other generations like years ago, but this is something definitely that I feel was pretty prominent in my childhood, and even rings true unto today. Like a lot of people tell me that I shouldn't waste my talents, or I should use my brain for something better. Constantly telling me that I should excel. I think there's this notion of being exceptionally good at what you're doing. And I would say this is not very great. It's not a very great mentality to have, especially when you have a whole cohort of people that think that way. Because really, realistically talking, you just cannot have the rhetoric of everyone being exceptional. I know, as in, does that make sense? I kind of feel that there's this narrative that you have to really hustle really hard and make it big in life. As long as you work really hard, your skills and your talents will show for it. But what I've come to realize is that most of the people that make it to the top, of course, they might have the skills and the talents. That's not what I'm focusing on, but rather a lot of people who do make it to the top do so only because they have prior connections, or they have certain opportunities and luck that came their way, or people who are just really opportunistic. I do think that's also a skill set in itself. And while great respect to those people who can make it big in life, meaning they can make a lot of monetary success and look very extraordinary to the people around them, I would say this is just not feasible for a lot of people, because there's just not a lot of these big breaks that can go around for everyone, right? I don't think that's a narrative that we should be pushing for all the time. And most of the time we don't realize that when there's someone that achieves extraordinary success, who is it at the expense of, right? I do think it kind of promotes a very individualistic notion of success. It doesn't really promote a kind of more collective or communal sense of achievement. It's very much, I made it this far, I made it this big, everything was due to my hard work. And I feel that's kind of burdensome. I also kind of feel that's a bit too naive to really believe that someone can achieve such amazing, extraordinary success just by working hard. And I'm kind of sick of being told that I should have bigger ambitions for who I am, because I don't think that, I don't know, since when was life being about being the most extraordinary person? I feel like that's unnecessarily competitive. Because, being put on this planet, I do think it's sufficient to have good food to eat, to have time with family and friends, to have leisurely time to do what I like. So like reading and knowing more about the world, learning more about the world. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not discontent with that. So I really don't see the point in having to be successful for the sake of it, unless there is some kind of bigger cause that you're committed to. And then I understand, I understand if there's a cause that maybe you put in to achieve the success for societal change or communal kind of benefit. I sort of understand the motivation for that, but the motivation to strike it big as an individual person, especially in the aspect of financial success, monetary success, it's kind of hard for me to understand, though I definitely have fallen into that trap a lot of times, thinking that monetary success automatically means a good and comfortable life. Of course, financial security will give you a lot of will give you a lot of safety nets, but I think that safety net doesn't really mean anything if you don't even know what you're working towards to have that safety net for. For example, you might just be saving up money for the sake of it because that's what people tell you to do, without really having maybe say a business that you're thinking of setting up, or a family that you're trying to support. I fall into that trap a lot, thinking that I just have to pursue monetary success just to shut everyone up around me, which is a very sort of Asian thing, I guess, but it's also a very Singaporean thing, because financial success here usually means that you've made it in life, which is kind of unfortunate, but I do think that's the circumstances that we live in. I don't know when that shift happened. When I was young, I was kind of happy-go-lucky and I felt like I could really do anything. And I've always had an affinity for food service, so I was always very interested in customer service. I always felt like that was something that I really enjoyed because it was not just a physical kind of activity. I really enjoyed moving around a lot, but also because I really enjoyed communication in that manner. It was very on the ball. It was like every day was a different day, and I really enjoyed food. I just felt like being able to provide a tangible service was something that was really suited to me, until suddenly I realized in my adult years that when adults tell you that you can be whatever you want to be, what they really mean is that you have to be a certain job title that enables you to be more financially successful than your parents, and therefore be able to continue a whole generation of wealth. Basically, that's what they mean. When people tell you to be whatever you want to be, they sort of expect you to choose a job that it's higher in hierarchy, higher in reputation than their own job. Because no one's gonna tell a kid like you can be whoever you want to be, and a kid says I want to be a janitor, and everyone says like that's a great job. No, they're gonna they're gonna encourage the kid to be like, why don't you dream bigger? Why don't you dream of being a CEO, or why don't you dream of being an astronomer, or I don't know, like a stem cell researcher, right? They're gonna tell the kid things like this. They're not gonna tell the kid, yeah, it's great, you can dream to be a hairdresser, you can dream to be I don't know, like a McDonald's service counter person, or a clinic receptionist. Like, no one's gonna tell a kid to dream of those jobs. Why? Because in a lot of people's eyes, those jobs are not even worth dreaming about, which is really unfortunate, because the fact is all these jobs have their own specialized skill set, and I really don't think there is any problem with people wanting to aspire towards different careers, right? There shouldn't be such a strict definition of what is a career that is worth aspiring towards, because I think even since I was young, I always felt a huge draw to the F&B sector, but it's really such a challenge to materialize that in Singapore, where the F&B sector is normally reserved for people who usually have a lot of money that can blow, or for family businesses that are sort of slowly dying out as their traditions get lost, as younger generations find it just not financially viable to continue the business anymore. So that's kind of like the state of how things are, generally. And I just find that quite upsetting when I think about it. So when I took up this part-time arrangement thing, definitely it has been a challenge, because a lot of people around me were kind of happy that I took up a job that was a better use of my talent. People tend to attach so many things to reputation that they don't actually consider that a job is a job that consists of the work you have to do, the hours you have to put in, the labor it takes out of you, not just the actual amount of time, but also the mental and emotional labor that you have to put in, and whether there is a proper boundary between your life and the work, and all those things, whether there is respect for you in that occupation, because when you just talk about reputation, that's just other people's opinions. At the end of the day, you are the one coming back home with the paycheck, with the work you have to do. Other people's opinions shouldn't have a say on how you earn your money or how you spend your money. But that's the market, right? I mean, that's basically how the economy works. Don't take it from me, I've never studied economics. I mean, at least formally. I've studied it informally, really. And that's why I think about it. I feel like the transition between thinking about a job as something that I thought I should enjoy to now a job that I know is tied to all these social and cultural signifiers of who I am as a person, what that means for my family. All these repercussions are really hitting me now. I think it's a really false narrative that we push onto children nowadays or young adults nowadays, that a job is whatever you dream of or whatever you want to be. The reality is really different. There is a hierarchy of jobs out there, but it shouldn't be the case. I think every job should be a reasonable job that gives people its like a reasonable pay and a very, very, very reasonable work-life balance, no matter what job they're doing. And one thing I really don't understand is why people tend to look down on service work so much. There's always a comment in the YouTube channel, like YouTube videos, there's always a comment like, oh, you know, if I was paid $15 an hour to just flip burgers, I would just do that. And you know, I would really want to invite these people to try it out. If you really do think that food service is easy, like F&B service is easy, you should really try it out, because it's not just physical work. It's about constant negotiations with the environment around you. So you're not just dealing with people, but you're also dealing with equipment. You're dealing with the quality of the work that you're providing. It has to be consistently good, because one bad review can really negatively impact your business a lot, right? There's very little margin for error. And there's also a lot of negotiations, not just with the other employees, so your co-workers, but also with the customers. And you have to deal with a lot of nasty attitudes, because it is a very high tension environment. You know, and it's not easy. It's really not easy. And to deal with the fact that you are paid so little at the end of the day is another stressor altogether. So I definitely don't think it's an easy job. Whoever thinks that it's easy to be paid 50 an hour just to serve food, I would say, you know, it's not easy. And for me, I would also say it's not easy to work a corporate job. I've been there before. I've been at a desk job where I just sat staring at a screen, doing nothing for 8 hours a day. It was torture for me, because I was supposedly paid for my talents, but I was not doing anything that could utilize my talents. Yeah, I kind of felt like I was being paid to look like I was contributing. Not that I was contributing about like 1 day's work for a couple of weeks, really. And I do think it's torture to work for a whole bunch of faces you don't even know and you won't ever meet, and to deal with a lot of bureaucracy every single day. I do think that's a kind of torture. I do think that's a kind of a kind of experience that eats away at you for many years, especially if you do endure it for many years. And I also do think that office politics is really petty, because at the end of the day, the service gets hampered. I mean, whatever product you're putting out will get hampered by all these internal conflicts, which I feel like would be so easily resolved, because I feel like communication when I was doing F&B was so much more straightforward, because there was a real need to resolve the conflicts. If you have employees who are unhappy with the work, it shows, and customers won't want to come in. So, you know, when I was working in the office, things get shelved for really long, and they cause problems much later on. And because, you know, not all the staff know each other, and there's no real incentive to get things done urgently, it's just a long waiting game. Honestly, it's really just a long waiting game. And I remember when I did an internship a long time ago, it was the same thing. I was just doing paperwork endlessly. And I remember the biggest relief in the day was when I was told to fetch coffee for the office. And it brought me a lot of joy to go to the coffee shop and order the things in the coffees, and to bring them back, and to set up the tables, and to prepare the tea break or the coffee break. And it's so ridiculous that that's the most fond memory I have of my internship, even though it was considered a very prestigious and very renowned sort of place. Yeah, I think that spoke volumes as to how people saw the job and how I saw the job really in its whole essence. So yes, moving on to where this sentiment stems from. Why is it that people are so reluctant to really admit that in reality, when you tell people to be ambitious, it's really to be ambitious in a certain way, in a very specific way that generates more wealth than previous generations. And I do think it's tied to this very sacred notion of growth, which I did talk about in my degrowth video, which was about how the economy is premised upon growth. And I do think it's drilled a lot in people's heads that growth is imperative. You have to grow or you'll go bust. It's so ingrained in people that it's just no way out. It's just impossible to conceive of a possibility where you can just keep the status quo, that you can actually make a consistent living without necessitating an increase in your material wealth or an increase in your reputation. People talk of it as stagnation, right? They're like, where do you see yourself in your career in 10 years time? Where do you see yourself in this position or this job role? I'm kind of sick and tired of that, because there's this pressure, right, that you have to keep moving up, you have to keep going forward, up, forward, right? And where does that kind of lead you, I wonder? And I really do think it's like this fear that by doing a lesser job you are downgrading your life, or you are living a poorer life, you're living a much less wealthy life, or a much less successful life, which I am now starting to understand the sentiments behind that. But at the same time, it's also what I feel about the whole like minimalist whole phenomenon, the trend, and degrowth as well, that when we think of poorer, we think of lesser. The fact is that a lot of lesser off people do live a much more minimalist life because their lives, their work and their life mandates it. It's not like they really chose that minimalist life, and I just want to acknowledge that right now. But I also do think that consciously choosing to downgrade in life shouldn't be seen as such a taboo thing. It shouldn't be seen as something that is a failure. I do think it actually is very respectable and very admirable, and I've seen quite a lot of YouTube videos that do talk about people wanting to live a much more mediocre or average, a quiet life. There's quite a lot of content like that, and I do feel a lot of resonance with those videos. I kind of am tired of being told I have to be so exceptional, that I just want to live a very simple life. And that has given me a lot of monetary anxieties, because I do think it's because of the same ideology that you have to earn a lot of money in order to have a decent standard of life, and to fulfill all the milestones that every successful life is supposed to have. So, for example, having a house, starting a family, having a retirement fund, paying, I don't know, a certain level of taxes. I don't even know, but so I'm still in the process of negotiating what are my actual financial needs and what are the needs that have been imposed onto me by other people. But that's not really easy, especially because literally I've not really received financial education that is transparent like that. A lot of I literally have not received financial education through the formal education system ever, other than the idea of saving, which really doesn't mean anything. It's just save $1 in case an emergency happens, which doesn't really tell you anything about like retirement funds or like how much you should be saving of your income or whatever like that. Not even throughout college, I think. And basically, yeah, like older people will always be telling me that you have to hit certain income brackets by certain years in order to secure a certain housing type for your family, or to be able to pay for insurance and things like that, which is a very standard path. I did mention in a video about my wrap up, I think, where I did talk about HDB policies, housing policies in Singapore, that tend to really favor a certain track for straight couples, that they can sort of ballot for houses and do the whole straight couple path with their salaries, and that mostly applies to middle or high income earners. Really, the housing public housing market is under a lot of criticism now because apparently a lot of higher income earners are kind of taking advantage of the market, and it sort of pushes a lot of the lower earners out of this affordable housing market, which is really unfortunate. I really think that should be much more regulated, but it's off tangent. That's on the standard of living. I don't really see earning a lesser income as necessarily a downgrade. I mean, it is literally a lesser income, but I don't feel like I should be ashamed of that, honestly. I don't know. What do y'all think? I kind of feel like there shouldn't be job shaming in this economy. I also feel like every job should be respected for what it is. There's really no need to tell people that they should be ashamed for the work they do, especially when these jobs are kind of needed by people. I would say maybe not really me because I'm a barista. I mean, I want to be a barista, so maybe coffee can be omitted from people's lives. But people can hate on F&B service work and still come in for their morning coffee every single day. So I don't know what the problem is really. If you want baristas to be automated, sure, just get your Nespresso coffees. But there's a reason why people still are regulars at cafes even after all these years, right? I don't think anyone would be very happy if all their baristas are automated in the next few years. I don't know, you can prove me wrong. I guess my job can be automated out, but literally any job can be automated out. Doctors can be automated out, by the way. So really, it can happen at any educational qualification level. It doesn't really matter what the skill set is, as long as automation can handle it. Why not, right? So it's not just limited to so-called low-skilled labor. Another point on work, I guess, one of the reasons why I don't really feel the compulsion to be ambitious in a very conventional sense, meaning like pursuing a corporate job in the knowledge economy, is that I feel like it's really almost like a theft of my identity in some ways. I realize this a lot now that I've shifted into my part-time arrangement. As I've mentioned, I don't think I really have any much time to read anymore for these few months while I'm doing this thing, because my brain is just so occupied by the work that I'm doing, because it does require a lot of like deep thinking and attention to detail with my brain. Of course, doing my barista work, it does require a lot of attention to detail as well, but there is a lot of body memory, a lot of physical memory, which is another skill set. But in this sense, I am using a lot of my mental skills, which unfortunately is the same space that I use for reading. I can't really read with my body, unfortunately, really sadly. So I have really little time to read now and to process my thoughts for videos like this, and to also kind of just share my summaries and reflections upon the books. And I'm kind of sad about that, but I do hope it's a temporary thing. I do hope that I can still go back to the kind of routine that I had before this part-time arrangement. Yeah, because I felt like that was a pretty good momentum for me. It was a pretty good place in my life, actually, like a month ago. But it's okay. It's a challenge for me to try new things. So that's that. I do think it will give me a lot of insights to think about work also in general in the future. But definitely, yeah, I do think that it is overplayed a lot, being a productive member of the knowledge economy. Definitely the consulting firms are a big part of this. A lot of people want to make it big by going to consulting firms and working in them for like a few years, and then coming out and doing their own little thing. And then you know what? They open their own F&B in 10 years' time. So I don't know what the joke is here. In the end, everyone just wants to be a cafe owner. I don't know why people tend to converge on that idea. Interestingly, unless you are an actual researcher with your name cited on the paper, there's very little chance that the work that you do in those knowledge economies kind of jobs actually gets credited to you. This is something that I don't know where I heard from, but it made a lot of sense to me. because no one's gonna be putting PowerPoint presentations out there and detailing whoever worked on which part. Most likely the PowerPoint presentations are just gonna go out there under the company name, and people are gonna present it as though they did the work, which is part of the agreement, right? I mean, whatever work you do is under the intellectual property of the company that you're working for. It might feel meaningful and well-intentioned when you work for these companies, but at the end of the day, when you finish working for these companies, all you have is the duration of time that you spent at the company. The fact is that the company will benefit from the thing that you produced for many, many years, and for even much longer after you. So you benefit you benefit from the salary that they pay you for the 2 years maybe that you're there, but the ideas that you've given them and the ideas that you've produced during those 2 years will continue to benefit them in the long term, and will continue to bring in more revenue, or maybe more interested employees and things like that. So that's kind of the way I think about it. I do think it's kind of over glamorized or over romanticized when people believe that being in these sort of intellectual or in these sort of talent based economies is a great use of your time and effort, or a great use of your skills. I don't necessarily think so. I feel like it's a better use of my brain to actually dedicate my own efforts to my own learning, and then use whatever I've learned to kind of do something about it in my own way, rather than to go through the very convoluted path of trying to find a company that really aligns with whatever philosophy that I have in life. Okay, so that's basically it for this video. It turned out to be a lot longer than I expected, as always, for all the videos that I filmed. And I really didn't talk about books at all. I really just gathered up all the thoughts I had about work and ambition and expectations and labor and all that, and dumped it into one video. I wanted to talk more about money anxieties, but I kind of feel I just skimmed it in this video. I do want to talk a little bit more about that, but also combine some of my own practical tips in dealing with money, because it's still a journey for me. I am still struggling a lot with money, especially with all these preconceived notions of how much I should be earning and how much I should be saving up for certain goals. That's it, I guess. Thanks so much for watching. If any of the things I've said sort of resonated with you, don't hesitate to leave comments down below. I am always really grateful that people have left amazing comments on my videos. I think a lot of you are really amazing in your stories. I know that my channel has been described as authentic and genuine and all that. It's I really feel like the comments are a lot more authentic and genuine than me. In the end, it's still a video, and I'm really grateful that you took the time to put those comments out for me. So thanks so much for that. I hope you're having a good week. I do hope you're feeling alright. If not, I do hope you take the time to rest, and for your loved ones as well, to spend some quality time with them. And I do hope that tomorrow will be better, or next week, or whatever you're going through. I hope that things will get better wherever you are. And if they're doing great, if you're going fine, great. I'm glad for you. So thanks for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next video. I do hope I'll continue posting consistently, because making videos have been such a therapeutic routine for me. So really, hopefully I'll continue doing videos. And thanks for staying with me. Until then, bye.